Welcome to the Iics Insiders Podcast. Are you a member of the Iics Integrated Christian School community? Or do you know someone who is? Would you like to hear from people around the school and learn more about what they're doing? Join me, Annika Brown-Jones, the head of Curriculum and Instruction, every month as I interview IICS students, teachers, leaders, and many others from across our community. Come along to connect or reconnect to listen to IICS Insider stories of learning, growing, and engaging with those who care. Hi again, everyone. This is Annika with the IICS Insiders Podcast. This podcast originated from a desire to communicate with members of our school community who were near and far when school was entirely online. We also wanted to attract a broader audience. We wanted more people to have an insider's look at who we are as a Christian school in Jakarta, even as we stayed connected with our stakeholders. We've talked with students from our junior high and senior high departments, teachers, and subject group coordinators. And today, in our first episode of 2022, we speak with our school leaders about being authentic IICS leadership insiders. Join us to hear from them. Hi everybody, it's Annika again, and like I said before, today we have with us three of our school leaders. We have our head of school, we have our principal of the senior high, and our principal of the junior high. I'll let them introduce themselves to you.
Hi guys, allow me to introduce myself. This is Joshi Catherine Tan, and I am the head of school of Iics Integrated Christian School. I have been part of IICS for the past 10 years, and it is such a privilege to be part of IICS.
And I am Natasha Cristiani, Miss Natasha, and I am the senior high school principal. I have been here since 2014, and it's been a great pleasure serving you here in IICS. And I'm excited to share about speaking authentically about leadership.
Shalom. Hi. My name is Chin Linche. Well, normally people can just call me Ling or Linche. I've been serving the Lord at IICS for almost 17 years, and it's such an honor to be able to serve Him at this school and to be able to get to know all of you a bit better day by day.
All right, thank you, ladies. And it's really an excellent opportunity that we have to speak with you. I know that your time is precious because you're busy, so let's get into it. Now, organizations, including schools, want to be seen for who they are. Each school seeks to represent itself with authenticity as an institution and makes itself visible with communication that is true to its mission and its vision and its goals. And so I'm going to throw a question out to you, ladies. How do you stay true to IICS mission, vision, and goals in the way you communicate across the school community and in the messages that you send out? Ms. Joshi?
Sure. So how do I stay true to the mission of the vision of the school? So first of all, I have to remember what is the mission and the vision of IICS or Iics. The mission of Iics is to educate students holistically based on Christian values. And the vision is to be an excellent Christian educational institution which declares Christ as the source of all wisdom and knowledge. And as you can see there, the mission is student-focused and the vision is God-centered. So I need to remember and I need to stick to this God-centered, student-focused when I make my decisions. That also means that I need to pray. I need to ask for God's wisdom when I am dealing with different types of activities, different types of cases, of problems, and how to find solutions that, once again, bring God in the center and student focus.
Thank you, Ms. Joshi. And yes, student-focused but God-centered. That is at the core of what we do at IICS. I don't know whether Ms. Natasha or Ms. Lynch want to share what they do in terms of how do you send that message out daily, both in your different departments, internally and even externally.
I think in senior high, just really focusing on students' needs as well as teachers' need in day-to-day, because sometimes it is really easy for us to get caught in the program in just accomplishing and checking off the list. But I think to really take in the student and the teacher element, in a sense that it's the people element into everything that we do, makes it more authentic, makes it that it's not just about accomplishing lists of tasks or trying basically get through a curriculum. Because I think a lot of times we get so caught up in that and just trying to cover materials or get things done, but we forgot that human element into it. And so I think on day-to-day practice, that's what I strive to do, is to not forget that we are dealing with real people, with real problems, with feelings, with different circumstances that we're coming from. So just really embrace that truth when dealing with students, when dealing with teachers, makes that student-focused, Christ-centered message, into practice.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes, that's so true. Keep your finger on the pulse of the people. Just the other day, I was sharing with some junior high teachers at our school, and I was saying, we teach students, we don't teach content. And so there is time that we need to take to differentiate and to reach the people, because that's the only way that we are actually being Christ-centered, in that Christ was about people. Ms. Lynch.
Well, for me personally, I think at the time we talk about students, teachers, then the very first thing that we need to ask would be, why do we do what we are doing? Why do we want to be a teacher? Why do we want to be in a Christian school? So when we think about the why, then we will think further on how we can do that and what's the message. And as always, one of the purpose of building a Christian school is to reach out to the people, to let them know about Jesus, while at the same time we help them to grow in their knowledge. So yes, I can tell that I agree with what Ms. Joshi said earlier. Student focused, God centered, because God is always at the center of all things that we do.
Right, and I do agree with you as well. And if we move on, many authentic leaders are described as people who prioritize openness, promote proactive interaction, and build trust in their school communities. Do you agree with this approach to leadership? And to take it further, does IICS leadership reflect this in everyday practice, in what we do as a school?
Well, continuing from my previous statement, when we talk about student-focused, God-centered, then if we say that the center is God, then it reminds me of the name of God. In the old spelling, we call him as Thou, right? Thou, Thou. So whenever I look at the word Thou, it reminds me, in whatever situation we are in, number one, building the trust is very important. So by building the trust, people will start to have hope that things will be better. And then O stands for openness, that people can be open to each other, be the real them be authentic to who they really are. And then you, at the end, we hope by knowing each other better, we can have that sense of unity. So, Dao.
Okay. Ms. Joshi.
I agree in some sense, but I also believe it takes two to tango in the sense that leaders prioritize openness. That is awesome. But I believe leaders, authentic leaders, also need to know when it's time to be open, to be proactive with the interactions, to build trust, definitely. But leaders also need to know when to close. Basically, one of the tough tasks of being a leader is to have that balance, when to do this, when to do that, when to say yes, when to say no, when it's time to promote proactiveness of interaction, or when it's time to say, you know what, guys, we cannot do that. This is what we need to follow through, So it does take two to tango, and it requires authentic leaders to see the broader view. What's the purpose? Because, again, we cannot satisfy everyone. And at the end of the day, my stance on that is that this leaders, whoever is that person is, will he or she makes a decision that is benefited him or herself, or is it for the betterment of the community? Is that leader doing what looks good in front of others and behind? Nope. Or just being true, being honest, and showing integrity. So, yeah, I agree in some sense, but it does take two to tango, and it will require years of experience, as well requires the leaders to get to know the people, to get to know the community. And the question, Ms. Anika, that you asked earlier, does it describe leadership at IICS? That's a very good question. I would like to know the answer to that as well.
I think, Ms. Joshi, what you're raising as well, to be authentic, part of that involves being reflective. Because a lot of the things that you mentioned, and thank you for giving such a comprehensive, insightful look at authentic leadership and leadership in general. But a lot of the things that you mentioned, as a leader, each individual has to think about what, like you said, Ms. Lynch, the why in what we're doing, and then look at our community as a whole, just to have that wisdom to know when to make what choice and what would be appropriate. And we have to reflect also on the impact that we're likely to have. So sometimes, even if you're a bold person or an outspoken person, you still have to manage that. Because like Ms. Joshi says as well, it's all about, at the end of the day, leading a community of people well. We're not doing it for ourselves. And
yes,
from a biblical perspective, it's also about our service. So I think reflection is very important, because we are not perfect people, but if we reflect on what we're doing, as we do it as leaders, we can be able to moderate and modulate how we progress and how we lead the community. Ms. Natasha, would you want to add anything to this aspect of the discussion?
Perhaps not to add, but just I would just second Ms. Joshi. I agree with this perspective, and just perhaps just taking it to does it describe the leadership IICS? I think yes, it does. Us among IICS leadership, we do promote openness and proactive interactions, and we do build trust, even from one leader to another. And I believe that trickles down to the middle leadership as well as teachers and students.
Amen to that.
And Ms. Anika, actually, I want to add in regards to openness here. I agree when Ms. Joshi said that it takes two sides, right? And then the openness here, I believe it requires wisdom, right? So it means not all things. Well, require wisdom means it doesn't mean that everything should be open on the daylight, like everything. But we will make sure that everything that we share, that we are open about, all the things that we share would be honest and true.
Yes. And it comes back to self-awareness and transparency, but it also comes back to, the fact that as a leader or as a Christian, our first responsibility is to honor God with what we do. And so this issue of integrity and honesty and so on definitely has to be part of authenticity. However, let's take a break and we'll go to our IICS ambassador for a word from our IICS ambassador.
Welcome back to IICS Insider Stories. Today I'm going to bring you updates from our senior high department. Grade 10 senior high students are going to hold cultural virtual field trip. They'll be making some handcraft batik fan, batik canvas bag, and shibori cotton t-shirt. Happening in parallel to this event, DP1 students will be having their science and visual art field trip. These field trips will happen on 7th and 8th of April 2022. And lastly, on 22nd of April, IICS Diploma Program will hold our very first ever TOK exhibition with online and on-site presentations. Looking forward to see you there.
This has been a tough year. This has been, the past 2 years, the years of leading through the pandemic. I would believe they were challenging. And so I want to ask you, how have you been able to cope as leaders during the pandemic with being self-aware, being transparent, holding on fast to your relationship with God, but then leading through a very turbulent time that probably tested you in so many ways that, you felt very challenged? How did you manage it?
Everyone was looking at me, so I guess I answer. Indeed, it is a very challenging time for school worldwide, for leaders in business or in anywhere. I think anyone in leadership during this pandemic had encountered this season as one of the hardest seasons that they ever gone through. So including us here in ICS as principals, as perhaps vice principals, and people in leadership. For me personally, how do I cope? Is I always strive to gain perspective on the matter, because sometimes when when things get really pressed, it's very hard to look at things from a bigger picture. So I think from time to time I find myself to just take a step back and look at things in from different perspectives, from different angles, talk about it with the people that I trust, see what insights they bring into my life, and to be able to see that a situation differently, because I think the ability of a leader to be able to reframe, to look at a situation from different frames is a strength. When a leader can do that, it helps the leader to process and to make sense of the situation. And I think when we are able to make sense of the situation, then we can make sound decision. So I think one of my most profound tool that I've learned throughout the season is to build that ability to reframe, to gain different perspective, to see things from many different angles, because there's, no one had ever gone through the pandemic before. So I think we have to just look at every single possibilities and look at it from multiple angles to be able to make the right choice and the right decision.
Right. And one of the things that I found really commendable amongst all of you, because I get the opportunity to see all of you lead, is the fact that, speaking about framing and reframing, the way you were able to ensure that not every problem became a wicked problem, meaning not every problem became a problem that is so out of control and unmanageable that we end up in further chaos than what is external that was coming to us, with the pandemic. And I think, I don't know, I might want to call it the art of deflation. Now, to deflate, I think, became an important skill. And sometimes you may wonder, was this being honest or whatever? But yes, we were being honest, but we were doing so in a way that protected excessive stress, excessive exposure, And so I would like to commend you guys for doing that, because I saw that coming from your leadership.
Oh, thank you so much, Miss Anika, for saying that.
You're welcome, Miss.
That's so meaningful to us. So I want to pick up from what Miss Natasha and addressing your questions earlier about self-awareness, transparency, and holding fast to our relationship with God. During these 2 years of pandemic, I believe every one of us, we have our own challenges, right? Because there's even one saying that say that, we are all in the same storm, but we are not all in the same boat. We all have our own circumstances, situations. So only by digging deeper into the words of God, then only we can remain strong in doing whatever we need to do as leaders. And yes, we cannot give what we don't have. So if we as leaders, we don't have close relationship with God, then we actually have nothing to offer for people that we are leading, teachers, and also students. So thank you. At least you highlight this part of the question in our discussion this morning.
Yes, Ms. Lyncha. Ms.
Yeah,
Joshi?
definitely. We are humans, humans that have our own problems, issues as well. But I believe the fact that God has put us in leadership, that says something. I believe nothing happens with no reasons, right? Everything happens with the reasons, and that's why we're here. Hopefully, we are making God smiles when He sees what we do. But returning to your question, Miss Anika, you asked that question earlier, and I thought to myself, how do I cope this past 2 years and even before this? It reminds me of that Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30, where it says that my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So that's how I cope. I attach myself even more to the Lord when I encounter problems. The bigger the problems, the more I just stick to my Lord. And I imagine myself as a bucket. So when I communicate with my God, I talk with Him and I see how much water do I have in my bucket. If it's half empty, half full, or almost full. And when I sense that, wow, my bucket is just overflowing or almost, I just, dumped that all water out, speak to my Lord and just asking Him so I can be ready, I can be equipped for more water, meaning like I am really trying to make sure that I have enough space for myself, but also for my team. Hopefully, when my team comes with their stories or their problems, I can be all ears in that sense. So attaching myself to the Lord, that's how I cope. He's been very gracious in that sense.
I do agree that in this season, God has been faithful, and He has preserved us, and He has given us the strength to carry on. And I see that in your leadership. I wondered, though, because our conversation has focused mostly from your perspective. So if we were to shift perspectives, how do you think your followers, how do you think your faculty, your staff, how do you think they would evaluate you? What type of scorecard would they give your leadership, not just during the pandemic, but in general as IICS leaders? Would anybody want to take that? Like, what do you think? I know it's a different question. It's a different kind of question from those that I've asked before. But I think it's really important as we speak about leadership. We're leading others, and we know what we're bringing to that leadership. But if we were to step out of ourselves and walk around in their shoes, what would be the response to the leadership that you're having?
I don't really know how to respond to that question because, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. I believe every one of us here, we try to do our very best. And in our very limited situation and conditions, many ups and downs, we may make mistake, but I hope the teachers, students that I'm in touch with almost on a daily basis, they can see that I am trying to be genuine, to be authentic, to be the real me. Like, I may make mistake, but I won't be that arrogant saying that, no, I'm always right. So I hope that the way I've tried to imitate Christ, to follow Christ, they can see Christ in me. So it's like less of me, more of God every time they see me. And I hope when you walk on the hallway, Miss Anika, you will meet my teachers and students, and hopefully they will be able to tell you that they can see that I'm growing. I'm growing.
Yes, and I suppose in a way you're right, Ms. Lynch, that we can only hope that this is what we're projecting, when we approach things genuinely. Because as leaders, we define what we do, we approach what we do out of the set of values that we have, So I get it that perhaps we believe that we're authentic leaders. But I know that leadership involves a lot more than that. It's not just about authenticity. And I believe that you're demonstrating authenticity. But I want to know from you, are there any other strengths that you believe you bring and demonstrate to your teams in your leadership?
For me, I don't want to put words in my team's mouth, of course, but I was trying to look back and see what are the possibilities that might think about my leadership. Probably is more of someone who just keeps on moving forward, someone who has high hopes. I hope, that has been the message so far. But I also noticed that we have Mr. Lucas over here. Maybe it's good to ask him, what does he think about us in these leaderships? So, Mr. Lucas, would you like to say something? Oh, he's shy. That's okay. He's smiling over here, though.
You've taken Mr. Lucas by surprise because, Mr. Lucas supports us with the podcast but has never been involved. But I think this demonstrates another of your strengths. You're inclusive. You are creative, right? You think about new ways to do things and to get different perspectives. And there you have it, Ms. Joshi. These are the things, the additional strengths that I could see coming from your leadership. But is it difficult, Ms. Natasha, to talk about additional strengths, or would you mind sharing what are some of the additional strengths you bring to your leadership?
I think I second Ms. Joshi and Ms. Lincha here. It is sometimes hard to evaluate ourselves in that regard without hearing true feedback from the people that we are leading. But I think in my case, especially during pandemic times, I think one aspect that I always strive to bring to the team is just empathy. I think that's one thing that I felt like I intentionally wanted to include, and I want to make sure that everyone felt that they are understood. That empathy, just bringing in with the faculty, with the students. And I don't know to what extent that's translates in day-to-day, in real life situation. But that's one thing that I intentionally wanting to continue to do in my approach in a lot of the things that I do. So I think if I were to name one, I think that's good. That would be one that I intentionally do include in my leadership.
Okay, Ms. Lynch, did we hear from you?
Yes, actually you did.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
For junior high, since we have pastoral care teachers, so I keep on telling my teachers and students as well that we do care about them. So I'm trying and learning to show that I care. I notice what they've been doing. The pandemic happened, and then it's not only us leaders who have our own struggles. Teachers, they have their own struggles too, and students as well. So at the time we show that we care, we reach out to them. Care become an active verb. Mm-hmm. And I pray that people can see that.
Excellent. And thank you. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you for digging a little deeper and actually treading in an area that maybe you didn't consider before. I would like to wrap up. And when I did this with the students, one of the things that I asked them, I said, who is the IICS insider? And I'd given them a speed round, but I'm not going to give you a speed round. But I would like us to reflect on that. Like, who are IICS insider leaders? If I am a parent, a new parent, a potential parent, or an existing parent, if I'm a student, if I'm a teacher, if I'm one of your partners as a leader, who are you? Who do you think? What will we get when we come to you and we engage with you as an IICS leadership community or team? Ms. Joshi?
Oh, yeah. I'll start. The word that comes to my mind is a motivator. I pray, I really try my best to be able to motivate my team, in hard times, in good times, that we are in this together, that we are as strong as our weakest link, and it's my job to motivate one another, to equip one another, to basically bring everybody to their full potentials. Because I believe all of us created beautifully by God, and that we have our own unique purposes in our lives, and that's why we're here in ISCS. So there you go. I hope that I am that motivator, that I will stay true to my calling, and I will be able to help others in their God's calling.
And so thank you, Ms. Joshi. Unless anybody else has something to add, I would like to say that the theme throughout all of these podcast episodes has been just that: togetherness, community, one for all for one, iron sharpening iron.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at the end of the day, if we had to speak about an IICS culture, whether it's the culture that exists amongst the students or the leadership or the teachers, it is that culture of unity and care.
Amen.
I agree, 100%.
All right. Ms. Lynch, anything from you, or is that a wrap?
I think that's a wrap. And when I say that's a wrap, and then I want to add something, means it's not a wrap then.
It's excellent. Your uniqueness. Here.
Yeah, I just think when Miss Joshi mentioned about we are motivator, I also believe she also referred to that, referring to the word inspirator, because at the time we motivate, we inspire others. Those motivations to do those things come out of pure heart, a sincere heart, because we want to see them growing. It's not just we motivate them to do something, to manipulate them to do something for our benefit, but because we really want them to grow. And I can feel that in your leadership, Miss Joshi. I appreciate that. And then I enjoy the leadership team, and then the interaction that we have in our team, both in IICS leadership team and also for me personally, in junior high leadership team. I can see how this team help each other to grow to be the better version of ourselves. And that's really the last sentence from me, Miss Anika. I give it back to you.
All right. And thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time and just, laying yourself bare in some ways and allowing others to come in, because we'll have people listening to this. But we believe that who we are is authentic. We believe that who we are, is true to what God has called us to do. And so we continue to press on. Thank you. And that's it, folks, for the IICS Leadership Insiders Authenticity Conversation.